Hey, Alex, welcome to the Mindfulpreneur podcast. I'm excited to have you today. How's your day going?
Oh, thanks, Alyssa. I'm really excited to be here. As I was sharing with you before we hopped onto the recording here,
Yeah,
my day's going a little crazy. I just moved to Austin, Texas from Pittsburgh,
yeah.
Pennsylvania. So,
Living in
yeah,
boxes.
yes, I'm living out of boxes and getting to know a new city, but it feels so good to be in a city with sunshine again. So, I'm
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
yeah, having a
That's
good
something I'm
morning, just a little
missing.
chaotic.
Yeah, for sure. It snowed
Mm.
like one of the first times it snowed here in Ontario. So it's a white day outside today, but at least it's like Christmas spirit, which is nice. I've never actually spent the holidays somewhere hot, I don't think. I guess
This
you're
will be
used to
my
that.
first time, yeah,
Oh,
in about
okay.
12 years.
Oh,
And
nice.
I lived in LA in my early 20s, and I remember the first Christmas there, walking around. There was fake snow on the ground, and I'm
No.
drinking a hot chocolate, sweating, and thinking, this does not feel like Christmas. So I definitely like the snow during December.
Yeah, it's a nice balance. I mean, I
Uh,
will never say no to the sun, but anyways, I hope you have a good move. I'm really thrilled to have you on the podcast today. I was telling you earlier that, on the Mindfulpreneur podcast, it's always like a good balance between having, the mindfulness aspect, the business aspect, people who are in later stages of building their brands, who can give advice to people in the early stages, and then also people who are in those earlier stages, who are a little bit more relatable, who are kind of like going through it as we speak. So I really love that your mission is to guide other entrepreneurs to break through their limitations in order to really elevate their revenue and their results in their business, all while living with joy in their day-to-day life. So you are obviously speaking from experience, having 10x your business's revenue in under 2 years. I know that was a while back, and there's been a whole journey since. So we're going to get into exactly how you did that. But before we do, can you tell us a little bit more about your business and how you got started?
Happy to.
Yeah.
I started my business back in 2016. I actually co-founded it with my sister. I had been
Oh,
really
cool.
interested. Yeah, gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago. But my sister and I have always been very close, and she knew that I was interested in starting a business. She introduced me to Jack Canfield, who's the originator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And he's a success
Oh.
coach and was certifying people. And that was really my introduction to personal development. So I read his book, The Success Principles. It was the first time I really was learning that you can take control of your life and that you get to be in the driver's seat, that you get to make your own choices, and that you can create success because it's here and available for you when you have the desire to. When you have a vision for something, the ability to make it happen is here. It's about just staying committed and continuing to move forward and figuring things out and trying things on, seeing what fits and learning from everything and treating
Hmm.
everything as a growth experience. And so that really shifted my worldview, because I was very much a perfectionist and a believer that if I didn't get it right the first time, I was wrong. That was a verdict that maybe I would be a failure. I had so many fears of just not being good enough, essentially.
Hmm.
And so I really fell in love with the personal development industry. And I studied with Jack, got multiple certifications, and then went on to work with some multiple world class mentors at a deep level. And it's transformed my life in just so many different ways that since 2016, I mean, I hardly recognize I don't recognize my business since 2016, but I hardly recognize myself because there's been so much transformation. And
Hmm.
so I have been on quite a journey since then, and my business has gone through multiple different iterations in terms of who I work with and what I do. But I think the main through line over the last almost 8 years now has been really discovering and figuring out that the best part of the journey and the most impactful part of the journey is looking at who I'm becoming in the
Hmm.
process, and me becoming the woman who can bring her desires to life and can live fully expressed and bring her most true, authentic expression into the world in order to be of highest service. And the more I've learned that and gone into my own personal development, the more it's impacted my results in business. So that was a lot. I know I've jumped ahead a little bit, but that's
No, it's true though, and it's
where it
so
all started.
relatable. Yeah, for sure. Like I think the
Mm.
personal aspect and how it reflects in your business I mean, I think everyone kind of goes through these ups and downs in life, in business. When you're an entrepreneur, there are a lot of parallels, and sometimes the way your business is going affects the way that your life is going. And not just like all that to say is that vice versa, it works the same, right? So if certain things are going on in your life and it's taking away your focus from your business in different aspects, then like it's likely to affect your business as well. So like I feel like for me, especially, it's been like sometimes a challenge to separate the two. I feel like I've been doing a decent job, but at the same time, they're like so intertwined that it's like, is separation really even necessary? How do you kind of like deal with that fine line between like personal development and business? Because the way that you go about things, it's like they're directly correlated, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you were sharing, I was just thinking, oh, that's interesting that you said you're trying to keep them separate. And
Mm,
I understand where that's coming from. We talk a lot in our culture today about work-life balance, right?
right.
And I'll say what I'm a believer in is definitely, and I'm not perfect at it by any means, but what I practice is being present wherever I am. So when I'm
Yes.
at work, when I'm in my business, I'm focused and present on my business. When I'm at home with my husband and daughter, I'm focused on them and present with them. And so I think of it as being present wherever you are. And I also believe in life business integration, because how you
Mm-hmm.
show up to do anything is how you show up to do everything. Your
Love that.
business is, your results in business is a reflection of who you're being.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, my intention is always to show up as who I really am all the time. And if I can do that, if I can bring all of me into my business, and if I can bring all of me into my personal life, then that's when they're integrated and where they're supporting each other instead of competing against each other.
Yeah. So where did this shift come from? Like what inspired you to get into this? I know you said you were reading a little bit, but like obviously there must have been something driving you to be like, I need a shift, I need a change, or was there something that maybe
Mm-hmm.
wasn't working that kind of brought you to this point?
Oh, such a juicy question. I like this one. Thanks for asking it. So, well, I'll say yes. And I've had multiple times throughout my journey where I was inspired that I wanted to make a significant change. And so the one I'll share right now, that's the most recent, was really about a year after I had my daughter. This was well, when she was one, it was 2022. And I had built a successful business at that point. I had already 10x my business. I was working with women from all over the country, hosting masterclasses and group programming. And I just started launching retreats, and I had team members and systems, and felt like a lot of things were checked off the list,
Hmm.
and I was happy. I had a lot of good things going on. Had my daughter, who's just the most amazing blessing in my life, and a good marriage. And so things were going. And I didn't even realize until she was about one that there was still so much more, because while I had made a lot of progress in accessing my authentic self, I still wasn't really living fully expressed. I wasn't tapping into my deepest, my deepest spiritual beliefs, my deepest connection to my body, to my sensuality, my connection to my creativity. I wasn't really accessing um, how powerful my internal intuition actually is. And I wasn't living from my heart as much as I wanted to. I was living more from my head and focused a lot on achievement versus focused on being a really powerful creator who is present and alive and enjoying the now. And so that was what really shifted for me, as I started to realize as my daughter was getting older that I wasn't being as present with her as I wanted to be, and that I was still operating from a place of feeling like what I was doing just wasn't enough yet. And
Mm.
that was a deep pattern for me of it just never feeling like enough. I'd hit a goal and celebrate for a moment. Okay, yeah, that's great. I checked that
Next,
off the
yeah.
box. And
Moving
then,
on.
yeah, now
Hmm.
what's next? Now what? Now what? Because it's still just not enough. And I realized sitting in my living room one day, just playing with my daughter, and realized about 20 minutes had gone by that I didn't even really notice what she was doing, because I was thinking so much about what I still had to do in my business and what I still wanted to achieve and accomplish. And all of a sudden I stopped and thought, I'm never going to get those 20 minutes back with her ever again.
Hmm.
And she's getting so much bigger and growing so fast. And I get 5 years for my daughter to be my daughter's whole world, and to be
Hmm.
so, for her to feel so close to me. And so I just stopped and thought, oh my gosh, there's so much more. There's
Yeah.
so much more.
How would someone go about building that awareness? Because that's really where it starts. It's like you become aware of the fact that you are not present, or you are not fulfilled, or you are not, doing the things or feeling the things that you wish to be feeling and doing, right? Where does that
Mm-hmm.
awareness stem from? I personally feel like it slowly kind of developed over time, like something just didn't feel right. And I would probably connect it mainly to my like intuition, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, if something feels off, let's look deeper into it. But for
Mm-hmm.
someone who's like, yeah, this all sounds great in theory, but like, how do you maybe build that skill set to be more aware of those things? Like, is there something that you did specifically, or did it just kind of come naturally?
Well, I've always been an analytical person for sure. And I've also always been very self reflective. But I'll say
Mm-hmm.
for me, I worked with a lot of different coaches and mentors that really supported me in raising my consciousness, in
Yeah.
raising my awareness, and, tapping into what's aligned for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I would encourage for the audience that's listening is to evaluate for yourself, how good do I feel on a regular day to day basis? And I want to be clear here for a moment, because I don't believe in what a lot of the personal development industry can perpetuate, which is be positive all the time and always feel good. And you have to always, be in rainbows and sunshine. I
Right. Not
absolutely believe we
realistic.
need to, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And well, because we're humans, we are
Yeah.
all in our humanity. And so
And
we
we all
need
have
to
to feel.
honor,
Yeah. We got to
yes, we need
feel
to honor our
everything. Yeah.
feelings. Yeah. And our emotions. And so I'm not promoting feeling happy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What I do encourage that you could reflect on is, how much do I give myself permission to feel really good about who I am right now and where I am right now? And then that's a place to explore. Okay, if I'm not feeling really good and aligned, and like this deep knowing that I'm where I'm meant to be, and I'm excited about what I'm going to create, and I'm living in complete trust that it's here and it's available and it's happening, so I'm just going to be open to creating and receiving. If you're not in that space, then start asking yourself, so what's blocking that? What's out of alignment? What is it in my life that feels really heavy? What's heavy lifting? What's not enough yet? And just be willing to reflect and ask yourself those questions.
What about when you're like in situations where, let's say you have some clients where you're like, hell yes, this is amazing, this feels great. But every now and again, like those difficult ones come along and you're like, oh man, or even just like building a business, you have certain challenges that come in that you really hate. Like you like despise having to work through these things. And you kind of get to this point where you're like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. I want to give up. But then you also have these certain highs that you're kind of chasing. How would
Mm.
you recommend someone deal with that, I guess, like emotional instability, if you will, where you have like crazy highs and crazy lows?
Super happy to answer this question. And for some more clarity, when you say, how would you recommend for someone to deal with that? What does
Mm-hmm.
dealing with it mean to you?
I would say understand and process, or like feel better about the situation at hand. Because I think
Mm.
when um you're kind of riding these highs or these lows, it's because maybe you're too attached to them. That's my
Mm.
perspective. So it's about like not necessarily being attached, but instead feeling into those moments, accepting them as they come and as they go, and understand that everything is kind of temporary, and that it will pass, but also not necessarily taking for granted like the good that comes. Like you said, sometimes that happens where it's like, okay, what's next? I want to do the next thing. So it's like there's a fine balance between celebrating to the point where you disassociate from what's actually going on in the rest of your business, where to the
Mm.
point where you're like not celebrating at all because you're constantly chasing the next thing. So it's kind of like finding the balance between the two. That's the long answer.
Yeah, no, I love hearing more of your perspective about it. And I agree that it's about this balance of feeling good about where you are. And let me go a little deeper here in what I mean with feeling good, because I think that'll speak to what you just shared.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling good, or sometimes I'll describe this as feeling really alive, again, doesn't mean always being in the positive. I've had experiences where I get really angry about something, and there's something
Mm-hmm.
that's like firing me up, and that I know it's something I don't think is right, or something I'm taking a stand for because it angers me. It can feel really good to just let myself be angry, because
Right.
for a long time in my life when I was younger, I was taught to stifle anger, and that it wasn't I fell into the good girl mentality when I was younger, and it was a huge people pleaser. And so it was always stifled and something I pushed down. So when I let myself actually feel anger and just let anger be okay, it feels good to just allow that, because it's the acceptance piece. And that's what you talked about. I'm a huge believer in accepting whatever is actually arising for you and just being present with it. So instead of trying to get rid of it or make the anger go away because, I don't want to be angry. Now you're just fighting with yourself and actually making yourself wrong for feeling anger. And it's in our resistance to ourselves that we're actually cutting off parts of our full expression. Being fully expressed doesn't mean, I'm just happy and positive all the time. Being fully expressed means all of me is welcome here all the time. And so it's about letting yourself feel those emotions and just be willing to sit with them, be present with them, and then be willing to look at what they're showing you. And so for the example of anger, anger and passion are on the same neural pathway. And so when you let yourself sit in and allow that anger, as you move through it and are present with it, it then starts to reveal to you what you're passionate about. And it can point you towards something that you want to create or lean more into, or, that you want to take a stand for. So all of your emotions and experiences can be in service to you when you allow them.
It's almost though like differentiating the two, like someone who's in that and feeling that, it's like, at what point do you realize that like this is actually anger and frustration, and it's something that's not in alignment with where you want to go, versus something that maybe you're just like super passionate about, passion in the sense of like, in the form of this kind of frustration where, and understand that it's part of the process, and you're still like on that right path. And I say in quotations, I think like the question lies more so in the differentiation. Like if someone's going through something, challenges within their business, and, maybe it's a really hard year and they're constantly being faced and being let down and they're ready to give up. It's like, at what point do you feel, or how can someone, I guess, get in touch with themselves to realize like, maybe this is not for me, or this is just part of the journey?
Oh, I'm really glad you went deeper with this question. This actually ties into something I talk a lot about, which is the 3 pillars around creating more success in your business, but also doing so with more joy and more ecstasy, more passion and fulfillment. Because I think so often we focus on just hitting that next goal, right? That's what I was stuck in. And I realized there's got to be more here, because I knew I wanted to experience so much more joy and fulfillment and not just checking things off the list. And so when you let yourself tap into what your true desires really are, and let yourself go deeper into your internal knowing, that's where all the clarity comes. So you're asking, how does someone differentiate between just, riding the waves of the emotion versus knowing, is this really for me, or what path am I supposed to take? One of my core pillars of elevating your results with more ecstasy, or the first core pillar, is to let your true desires lead the way. And that means you have to be willing to go into, what do I actually really desire? What actually feels good to me, not just in my head, but in my heart and in my body? What actually feels good to me when I remove any shoulds or fear of what other people think or fears of getting it wrong? If I reflect on what actually fulfills me and lights me up inside, that's where you're going to find your answer.
I love that. So let's bring it back to, because I feel like this aligns a lot with, when you had that shift within your business. So you mentioned that the 10Xing happened in like 2020, 2021. And then you realized that there was like a misalignment between the business and, I guess, your core values. And so things shifted, and then you shifted your business. So can we first talk about how that 10Xing happened, in under 2 years, and then what that shift looked like, and basically how, like, what perpetuated that shift?
The shift to create the 10X in business?
Well, no, the shift from, because you mentioned there was like a disconnect between your business and your personal evolution at one point. So you had 10X, then, things were great in your business, but something wasn't aligned. So you had that knowing and that realization, and then you made a shift. So let's talk first about the 10Xing, like how did that happen? And then we'll get into the shift.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. The 10Xing, I will say, was, well, a combination of a lot of things. But if I could distill it down in summary here, One, I learned how to step into leading powerful, heart-centered sales. Sales was something I had been resisting for a long time before that. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be a mentor, a trainer, a facilitator. I wanted to impact people, but I had a misinterpreted view of what being a good salesperson was. I thought it was
Mm.
being kind of charming and convincing, and that you had to talk people into working with you or prove your value to people. And so when I learned how to really embrace that the truth of sales is that it's guiding someone to clarity about if they're a yes or a no to work with you, it's
Ooh, I
something you do
like
for
that.
someone.
Guiding someone to
Oh,
clarity.
yes, I
That's
learned that from one of my mentors, and have adopted that into my own philosophy.
If you think about it, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually such a simple way to think about the sales process. I feel like the sales process is so overly complicated or can be,
Mm-hmm.
but when you put it that way, it's like, hey, let's just understand what they want and if I can support them with what they want.
Yes. And are they a yes or a no for
Yeah.
what I want because, or
Yeah.
for what I offer?
Hmm.
Because that's the job, is to guide them to clarity. So if someone is a clear no, you've made a sale. If they're a clear yes,
Oh,
you've made a sale.
interesting way to look at it.
So of course, yeah, it will, for that, for me, reframed everything, because
Hmm.
I used to view sales as I'm here to get the yes. And
Yeah.
now I'm in getting energy, I'm in forcing energy, I'm in grinding energy. And so when I learned how to release that and really allow sales to be about serving someone, hey, I'm here to help you get clear. That's my job. I'm here to help you get to a clear yes or a no. I'm going to own the value of what I do. I'm going to be bold and convicted in that so that you know what's here and available for you and what's possible. And I'm going to release attachment to any specific outcome, because
Right.
I trust in the abundance of opportunity. So I don't need you to be a yes. I
I
might want you to
trust
be a
in the
yes.
abundance of opportunity. I love that. And it's so true because there is
Mm-hmm.
an abundance of opportunity. I think a lot of people get stifled by the idea that, like, oh, there's so much competition. Like, no one's signing with me because, or like no one's buying my product because there's so much competition. But
Mm-hmm.
no, like, that's not the case. It's, you know, there's an abundance. There is an abundance of
Right.
opportunity. I love that.
Right. And it ties back to what I said at the beginning, that if you have a vision and a desire for something, that means the ability to make it happen is here. It's the
Hmm.
universal law of polarity. There's equal and opposite to everything. So if you have the desire for clients, the clients are out there and available to you. You just have to learn and grow and explore and put yourself out there until you find the people who want what you have to give. So shifting that view of sales, it changed everything for me and helped me become so much more service minded, and it helped me become so much more effective at sales. So that was a huge part of the 10xing. And I'll say with that, there was also just learning, of course, more business strategies and marketing strategies, how to elevate and amplify what I was doing.
Right.
And then on the internal side, in my inner world, I really focused heavily on releasing the imposter syndrome, the people pleasing, and really not owning my value. I
Hmm.
was really afraid to be bold and unapologetic in who I really am and in what I do and how it helps people. So I would say that those were the biggest things that caused this quantum leap in 2020.
Yeah, I resonate so much with what you're saying. And it's like so many good little reminders. I feel like for any entrepreneur listening, it's like there's, oh, I don't even know where to begin because like everything that you said was like check, 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 check. Like it just makes sense. Like the last 3 minutes, I recommend everyone literally just like go back and listen to that again. Like there is an abundance of opportunity out there. And it's like this whole concept of sales, I feel like can be so simplified. It's just a matter of like really understanding what that looks like for you, who your clients are, not being attached to the yes or the no, and feeling like the no's are still a sale. Like you said, I really like that that mentality because it's not necessarily a loss. With Nomad Creative, we send out, I don't know, between, I would say up to like 20 to 30 pitches per month, let's say. And we'll close a few.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a very small like closing rate, and there's a lot of conversation, proposal building, follow-up calls that goes into it. And sometimes it doesn't work, whether it's budget, whether it's timeline, whether it's not the right timing. Like there are so many different variables involved, and my big lesson was to learn not to get attached to that. It's like they're not necessarily saying no because like you're not good enough or it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be great for them. Sometimes it's just there are other things that aren't aligning, and that's okay. It's like one door closes, another opens, right?
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah.
love what you said about not taking it personally. That's the most
Mm-hmm.
important thing with sales, is to let go of that fear of rejection, or even seeing a no as rejection. And then also the fear of what people are going to think of you or what it means about you.
Yeah.
I relate to when you were just saying about sending out, you know, a much larger number of invites based on what you close. And when I first started working with a mentor in 2020 who was really helping me with sales, she really challenged me about putting myself out there and doing direct outreach. And so I reached out to, I think it was about 28 or 29 people in 1 month. I ended up proposing, I think 24, 25 sales calls from those reach outs. And then only 14, I think, of those people said yes to actually getting on a sales conversation. And then only 5 ended up being yeses.
Mm-hmm.
And so only 5 out of 29 reach outs. But those 5 yeses ended up booking me $50,000, which was more money than I had made in my business in a year to that point. And I did
Yeah.
it in the first 2 months of the year. So it's
Amazing.
about really, thank you. It's about really focusing on finding the people that you can help and staying convicted in your value and not taking anything personally, because it's just about finding the people that are ripe and ready for what you're offering.
Yeah, I agree. On the same note, though, I will say that if there is consistent feedback that you're getting, to not ignore it either, because sometimes maybe there is something that can be changed and applied. Not to say that like everything that we do and put out is going to be perfect and exactly what everyone needs. Maybe we do need to listen to some feedback, and maybe there is room for growth there. So yes, as much as we want to
Oh,
stay like
100%.
convicted in our offering, the value that we provide, I do fully believe in that. We also want to continue to be those like students in the sales process, in building a business, whether it's within your team, whether it's with clients, customers, whatever it may be. Like, I think being open to learning is key in growth.
Oh, 100%. I'm so glad you brought that in. And I'll say, to follow up the story,
Mm-hmm.
that of those sales calls that I ended up doing, I recorded and watched every single one, took notes, looked at
Yeah.
all the mistakes I made, because I made a ton of mistakes. I was learning a lot about sales at that time. So are there things I could have done better or differently that might have changed an outcome? Absolutely. And so I could hold space for the duality of, yes, I can grow and there's things I can do to help close more sales. And I also trust in divine timing. I trust in being supported by the universe. And so I believe that I ended up working with the people I was meant to work with. So
Yeah.
there's holding both to be true, that, okay, it's all unfolding for my growth, for my learning, for my good, and for the good of those that I can help. And I always want to be getting better and improving.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned earlier about kind of shifting from this energy of being very, I guess, masculine, right? And like sales oriented to feminine. So let's talk about the masculine and feminine. This is something we've touched upon on a few
I'd love
different
to.
episodes, but I know that it's a juicy topic. So like from your perspective and maybe through like your personal experience, what was that shift from, because I think actually like a big misconception is that people say like masculine is bad or can be bad, and that we should be tapping more into our feminine, which like I think both are important, and depends like what you're doing to tap into both. But it's like we were saying earlier, instead of being at an extreme, kind of understanding when to utilize one or the other. So what was your experience and this shift between being more in your masculine to embracing more of the feminine, and how that applied to your business specifically?
I love that you brought to light how some people talk about the masculine being bad. And
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with what you just said, that
Mm-hmm.
I think there's plenty of times the masculine is in service to us. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of masculine energy, in terms of how I was taught to build my business. And,
Same. Yeah.
yeah. And so, and I embrace a lot of that. I believe there's unhealthy masculine. And when I go into my unhealthy masculine is when I'm in the grinding, the go, 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 the forcing, the, just striving and chasing. And so there's also really healthy masculine, which is my ability to get things done, make it happen, and be organized and a producer. So yes to that. And in terms of when I realized that I did want to embrace more of my feminine, and I also think this is unique for every person. And so kind of tying back to what your true desires are, for me, I really desired to experience more of my feminine because I had so much experience being taught to build my business in the masculine. And I wanted to experience more receiving, more creating. I was a really creative child, a very visionary child. And I loved acting and performing, and I loved daydreaming and writing. And I had a lot of that in my childhood. And then as I got older, I got just really into, in my professional life, just the grinding. And I lost a lot of my creativity. I went to a lot of fear, and with my people pleasing absolutely stifles creativity. And I became a huge people pleaser as I grew up. So I really wanted to tap back into more of my innate creativity, which was to be found in my feminine. And so I think, again, it was around that time that I had my daughter, and as in her first year or so of life, I came to see that I was burning out and not present. And I realized I was carrying so much on my own plate and feeling like I always had to make everything happen. And I got really tired and realized, wow, it would feel really good to be more supported. It would feel really good to let go of control and to be more supported by my husband, to allow myself to receive more from him, because not my husband's always happy to give, but I had to allow receiving more. And letting myself be more connected to my sensuality and to my body and to my pleasure and to passion. And all of that was just something that I really desired. And so I came to see that I didn't want to keep grinding. I wanted to be in more joy and ecstasy and passion. And so for me, that pathway was embracing more of the feminine and becoming more fully expressed.
Yeah, I feel like even like kind of relating it back to your relationship with your partner too, you said that you had to basically like open up in order to be able to receive. But I think that what's interesting, because I can kind of relate to that too. And the way that I've always explained it is that I'm running a business very, very much in my masculine as well. Definitely have been tapping into more of the feminine and like that gentle side in business. Like it doesn't always have to be go, go, go. But naturally, you have a lot of those leadership qualities, the organization, the managing a team, managing clients, like looking at money, all of these things where you're constantly like in charge, and I wouldn't say that my husband is like, he's very balanced. He's also a Libra. I don't know if anyone knows or cares about that, but like he's super balanced. So I feel like he has like a good mix between the two, but I was definitely more on like the masculine side. But with him, I wanted to feel more like babied and supported because I was so used to always just being in charge. So like for me, part of like the way that I receive love is to be cared for in a more like gentle, tender way and literally babied in a weird way. And it's not to say that like I need him at my beck and call, but he always kind of saw me as like, oh, she's independent. She can do things herself. Like she doesn't need me to do X, Y, and Z. And it's not so much of a need, but it's more of like a want. And so it's one thing to be open to receiving, but I think that if you are someone who is transitioning and trying to tap into more of that feminine energy and is looking to receive, whether it's from their partner, whether it's from, someone within your organization, your business partner, employees, whatever, I think it's also important to communicate that, because when you're going through an internal shift and you're changing, you know what's going on, but the people on the outside don't necessarily know what's going on. So unless you communicate that and say like, hey, I would really love it if you could do X, Y, and Z and support me in X, Y, and Z, or like this would feel really good if every now and again you can step up and whatever it may be, So it kind of also gives them the opportunity to kind of give you what you're looking for, to avoid that disappointment and like, well, how come they're not meeting me where I want them to meet me? But there was that communication that didn't happen in between. So that was kind of something that we had worked through at some point, where we realized we just weren't telling each other what we needed at that time. And until we kind of figured out like, hey, we've been together for 12 years. So this is where the shift has happened. And this is how we need to adjust the way we are with each other in order to continue to meet one another on a higher level. You're constantly growing, you're constantly changing, but that communication piece, I think, is extremely important, whether it's in business, personal life, like you said, there's the intertwine,
Oh, absolutely. And what you're talking about as well is really allowing yourself to be seen with your partner. To be seen, you have to be willing to ask for what you want, to ask for what you need, to tell your partner, this is what feels really good to me. And one, you have to actually know what feels good to you and what you want. And you have to cultivate that kind of trust in yourself and your intuition. And when you do that, then you can let yourself be more seen And to do that, you have to be communicative. And so I love, this could be a whole other podcast episode, but I absolutely love talking about deepening intimacy in marriage. That's been a huge part of my journey with my husband. And so I love that you shared about letting yourself ask for what you really wanted. And I think as we can tie that back to business, like I said before, about how we do anything is how we do everything. And so how you show up with your partner that way, that can also help you really make strides forward in your business by letting yourself ask what you really want, what you need. What do you want to actually feel good, to feel seen by you, by other people? And you can communicate that when it's appropriate with your clients too, about, well, what do you want? How do you want to work with your clients? I know a lot of entrepreneurs that will end up unconsciously putting their clients in the driver's seat by letting their clients dictate their boundaries and their scope and how they operate, because they'll think, well, this is just what I need to do. This is what people expect of me. And so I love to encourage people to look at, what do I actually want? How do I want to work with people? What's the dynamic I want? And who are the people I want to work with? Are there people I'm working with that are just completely draining to me, or are headaches? Or am I collaborating with people where it just feels like we're not matched up? There's this misalignment? And then give yourself permission to say, I am worthy and deserving of creating my desires through my business. It's okay for me to be in the driver's seat, because when I do that, I'm actually going to be in highest service to other people. Just like I'm going to be in highest service to my marriage when I actually let my partner see who I really am.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I actually spoke on a panel a few weeks ago, and I spoke about exactly this, how, I have experience working for other brands, working for other agencies, and working as a freelancer. And so Nomad Creative is kind of like a combination of all of those things. And in building my business, I really wanted to put my values first, because I knew all of the things that weren't working from my perspective, what I didn't like seeing or feeling working for these other companies, people, and then freelancing in the relationship with the client too, right? Being like walked all over, not having proper boundaries. And boundaries in an agency's perspective can be through a contract, right? Through the deliverables, through the revisions that you're putting forward, and all of those things. And being really clear on that is important. But in really understanding too, like what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and then choosing to build a team that has those same values as me has been a big part of it. So that we, number one, love to work together. We have similar mindsets on how to go about things, how to approach certain situations. And then from the client's perspective, I'm still involved in that sales process. So it's my responsibility to make sure that whoever I'm bringing on for my team to deal with and work with is respectful, will value us and see us as partners, and not necessarily as like someone they're just like paying to get the job done. So the way that I see it, it's like it's a collaboration. No matter what you're doing, whether it's an exchange for a product or a service, it's a collaboration. It takes two to tango. As much as you're providing, you're doing the service, they're also getting something in return. So like, we're building a business, we're making money, we're being creative, we're doing all of those great things, but we're also supporting someone else and building out their vision. And whether it's a brand or a website or making that come to life, we have to remember that too. It's like, I think it's really easy to get carried away in like the transaction portion and forgetting like the human portion of the business. And so that's what I've really had at the forefront of building and running Nomad Creative. And it's always a work in progress. It's always shifting, but I do my best. And I always have that top of mind whenever I'm making decisions for my business, is to care about the people who are involved from all aspects. So any entrepreneur, I urge you to care and pay attention, because those are the people that you're going to surround yourself by. And that's the energy that you're going to be giving and receiving. Like you can have some kind of control over that, some kind.
Yes. Oh, 100%. And, I think one of the things that blocks people from that is a belief that I have to get my business to this certain point before I can do that. Well, I need the opportunity, right? I can't say no to clients. I can't turn people down,
which I can understand
that
to a
right
degree.
yet.
Yeah. No, I can understand that to a degree, because I have also been there too. And you kind of just say yes to everything. You try, you fail, and then you figure out what works and what doesn't work. Because sometimes you don't really know those boundaries until until they're like overstepped, you know, and then you realize, oh, I didn't like that. And then you kind of
Yeah.
create those boundaries based on those experiences. So like in theory, it's nice to be like, from day one, this is exactly what I want. But I think that you need a bit of that experience in order to establish them, at least from my experience.
Well, right. Because you need to, where I agree with what you're saying is that you need to understand what you actually do desire, what's actually aligned for you. And so what I always will encourage my clients with is exploring, what am I actually available for? And so if you are available to sign a client that, and well, I'll say this. I mean, I work with women entrepreneurs, but I have had male clients and I will still take on a male client if there's alignment there. It's, even though that's my niche and my ideal client is a woman entrepreneur, I'll work with a man if I feel like I can support him and serve him. And if I'm available for it, if there's alignment, if I feel like this person aligns with my values. So I think it's about exploring that. Where is it that I still need the opportunity in order to learn and get to know myself better and know what I want and can serve this person, versus where am I taking on someone that I know I'm a no for, but I'm taking them on because I feel like I'll miss out on the opportunity if I don't, or I'll miss out on the money if I don't. And if you're in that way of thinking, you're in lack mentality.
Yeah, I hear you. And I feel that. And I have quite the radar now, let me tell you. Sometimes within like 30 seconds of a call, I'm like, this is not going to work. Like, I know, you know, like, and it's just, you just, I don't know. It's something you figure out and you kind of like learn over time. I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years within my business. Before that, I was freelancing, but you know, it's like the sales calls within the business specifically. Sometimes I get on and I just know, like, it's, I don't know how, I just do. There's like something that goes off and I'm like, whether it's like something they said, how they said it, the way they're communicating to me, maybe the way that they're describing the project, I'm like, yeah, no, not for us, not the best fit. And I'll be honest with them almost on the call. Like, I'm not sure if like this is a great alignment, because I don't want to waste anyone's time. I don't want to put together a proposal knowing that it's not going to work, or knowing that this isn't the type of client that aligns with my business. So it's like having also the guts to respectfully let them know that, hey, this might not be a great fit, but I really appreciate you reaching out, you know, and thinking of us.
Well, it sounds like you've really been cultivating a gut knowing and trust in your own intuition, because that's what you're talking about. Your intuition will just immediately, you know, within 30 seconds can tell you, if this person's aligned or not. And I love that you shared that, because our intuition is so incredibly powerful. I tell everybody, and I want to say this to everyone listening, that your intuition is your greatest asset. Your time is a close second, but your intuition is your greatest asset, because your inner guidance, your intuition, it always knows what you need. And it is always guiding you towards more expansion, more solutions, and more creativity. And so when you can trust in wherever your intuition is pulling you, that's where you're going to actually create the greatest growth.
Love that. On that note, I feel like you've already shared so many valuable insights, but the way we end the Mindfulpreneur podcast is with one key takeaway from your life, from your business, something that you want to leave our listeners with in the Mindful Minute. What would that be for you?
I would encourage entrepreneurs that as you are exploring your next steps and where you want to go and elevating to higher and higher results, that one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself is to continue going deeper into your full expression. And what I mean by that is being really connected to yourself, trusting yourself, and tapping into your most authentic self and where your true desires and your intuition is really leading you, because that is what actually creates you experiencing more fulfillment and joy and passion in your life. No matter what results you achieve, they'll never actually feel like they're enough yet until you are standing in owning your value from the inside out and in your own full expression, and knowing that you are living in alignment with your highest self. So the more you can explore filling yourself up and really allowing who you are becoming to be a top priority, that's where you're going to create enjoyment along the journey, not just in the destination.
I love that, the becoming part, because you're almost thinking ahead and thinking in the future. And, you know, when people talk about like manifestation and stuff, I mean, this can be looked at in so many different angles, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's the concept of already feeling as if you got or received or experienced the thing that you're working towards, you know, really embodying and feeling it before it happens. And that's kind of like the way to follow the path. So I love that you said that. If anyone wanted to work with you, get more information from you, where can they find you on social? Do you have any other like events coming up? Let us know.
Absolutely. I love to connect with people on social. You can find me on Instagram, Alex Pursglove, or LinkedIn, Alex Pursglove. Nice thing about my last name is there aren't that many of us out there, so I'm pretty easy to find. But yeah, you can find me on those platforms. I also just put out a new ebook called Radical Trust, A Woman's Guide to Manifesting True Desires, Joy, and Passion. So I'm happy to share that link with your audience, because it's a really deeper dive into uncovering what it looks like and what it takes to create, as you mentioned, manifestation, what it takes to be able to bring more of your desires to life from a place of more joy. And it includes the 4 pillars of cultivating that radical trust with yourself so that you can be more fully expressed and thus create more results in your life.
Amazing. I didn't plan that, by the way. When I said manifestation, it just seemed to fit in perfectly. Amazing. Okay. Well, guys, all of the links to connect with Alex are in the show notes. So take a look. This was just the tip of the iceberg. She has so much incredible knowledge and wisdom to share. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, bye.